Skippo, it's good to have you in the Serpentosphere, man.
Dude,
long overdue.
it is long overdue. I'm out of the Midlands.
Yeah,
God bless.
You're fucking traveling, dude. So Jocelyn was like, "You're going to St. Louis, right?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I definitely want to go. Gotta go.
Yeah.
If this thing happens." She's like, "It's the fucking coronavirus, just this traveling. This." She's worried.
Yeah.
She's obviously worried.
Which is understandable. I mean,
yeah.
I know.
All things considered, I'm like, of course, so am I. And I was thinking to myself, I'm like, damn, dude, like 100 years ago, 200 years ago, fucking the dad had to travel out and fucking go do something, and
yeah.
Driving to St. Louis, 22-hour drives, kind of crazy, a little bit gnarly, but think like for some reason I had to go to St. Louis fucking 200 years ago for something, right? And I'm just fucking traversing the land, fucking fighting off the wolves. Like that's what came to my mind, dude. Like it's a modern day, you're doing this because you believe it's something that's going to be significant.
So that would be the plan if it to drive opposed to fly, just to avoid.
Mm-hmm.
Dang, dude.
Yeah.
That's a fucking gnarly drive.
Yeah. We'd stop in Midland probably just to say hi to folks.
Yeah.
Maybe there's a donor there.
Yeah.
So we'll try to do that on the way and then get there, man. Yeah. But anyway, so going back to that, you just left the
Permian, man. 3 years.
3 years.
I'll admit, like, to be totally upfront and blunt, it is not good.
Yeah.
It is not good. Operators obviously the combination of, they're just things that are out of people's control, right?
Right.
Like geopolitical issues, especially for a town like Midland, is huge, right? So when you have like Russia and OPEC at each other's throats, then, there's nothing that they could do.
Right.
And on top of that, we're not talking about these super giants that are in Midland, right? We're talking about these, obviously the bigger independents. There are super giants there, right? You have Exxon, Chevron, Shell,
sure.
Oxy. They all have a little piece of it. But, like these smaller independents are hurting hard. I've never seen Midland like it has been in the last month. It was,
right.
I don't know, it almost felt like a ghost town again.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, driving around's nice, right? Because it's not like you're waiting 5 minutes at a light, but like on like Andrews and Midland or whatever.
Yeah.
But that was kind of the beauty of it, right? Everything was so busy. It was that hustle and bustle. It was that oil field traffic, and then all of a sudden, just
pretty wild, man.
Yeah.
You showed up 3 years ago, August. Would that have been 3 years exactly?
No, it was May.
Oh, it was May.
It was May. Yeah, very.
So you
very end of May. That's when I moved out.
Wow. So you were 2 years, 10 months technically.
Yeah. Yeah, so I say 3 because 3 sounds way better.
2017 May.
Yeah.
Wow. That's when you showed up and fucking you were ready to take on the Permian.
Oh, man.
That was badass, dude. Thinking back.
Dude, it was, I wouldn't trade it away for the world, man.
Right.
The amount I learned, the people I've met, just seeing the blowing and going of the unconventional game, like
being in it with all the rest of the gunslingers.
Yeah, exactly. Like the geologic curiosity that was happening, right? Everyone trying to figure out an answer, but no one could. That's it at the end of the day, right? And turn into an engineering game. And if you ask any company if they are doing any kind of science work, the science is to stay on depth. Like that's what a geophysicist does. Like make sure we don't go across too big of a fault, but we're going to land this lateral 10,000 feet, put us, as many stages away as we can, and then we're going to move on to the next one.
Wow.
So,
perfectly said, dude.
Yeah.
Perfectly said.
And
I showed up in 2014, right? The summer of 2014, $90-something oil. 96, something like that, 97.
Yeah, so you witnessed the major bust.
Yeah. And then in 1 year from that time, it got to 27, I think, 20, maybe even 26. What's today's prices essentially? Yeah. What is the price today?
But that drop is way more dramatic than what I saw, right? It was $70. So what, last year around this time?
Let's take a look.
$22.
Oh shit. Crude oil prices today.
This isn't like the funnest podcast if you're listening in. I'm not going to lie, but this is the reality of the business we work in. It's just, this is something that happens, and it's extremely unfortunate, but
I want to see the timeline on WTI.
dude, it was 30 a couple days ago. It was 27 yesterday.
Holy shit, dude. So that's equivalent to...
yeah, so look, I think over there, May this time last year was almost $70, right? It was like 60, 65.
65.
Yeah.
Dude, that is officially... I guess if you like go back to the early 90s when it dropped to $9 or some shit, that's like, I think 16 equivalent to today.
Mm-hmm.
So we are really close to...
What's crazy too is like the stocks for these companies and how low they're all at all-time lows. Like Apache is less than $5 a share. I think it was trading at like $4.75 yesterday, and the lowest Apache's ever been was $12 a share. I think it was back in like 2001, 2002. Don't quote me on that, but it's insane, absolutely insane.
Wow.
Yeah. So Exxon's about trading what it was yesterday, mid-30s.
Oxy's at $10.
Oh shit.
So somebody said something on LinkedIn the other day about Chevron now can buy both Oxy and Anadarko for less than what Oxy bought Anadarko for. What a move, man.
Hey, Oxy was playing checkers, Chevron's playing chess.
Hey, Skippo dropping it.
No, but at the end of the day, dude, that is crazy to think about.
Crazy.
And this is what kind of worries me too, right? Because we know because there's been talks of, these super majors buying out these larger independents, right? And it's turning more into that monopoly again,
right?
Which is not good, in my opinion.
No,
right? Because, when you begin to monopolize, that breeds ignorance in the industry and reduces innovation, right? You can say there's a research lab and that, but what breeds like innovation? Competition.
That's right.
Right. And I mean, offshore, I've like you and me, I don't think we can really have a fair shake as far as like, the geopolitical issues that go on working, international offshore. But as far as domestically, that's the last thing I want to see is, all these companies that I know for a fact have great internal research teams and, they're doing awesome stuff. All of a sudden now they're swallowed into a culture or something that, it just slows the pace of progress, especially in unconventionals. That's like the last thing we want.
Sheesh, dude. Scary times, man. Wild times. That's what I keep saying.
Yeah,
wild times. Wild times. People are going to obviously break through and really win on the other side of this. And that's kind of where I focus my time and attention, because it's, where hope resides. There's no, there's no hope in the weeds of all of this stuff. So how do we get out? It's through a new geologic perspective, in my opinion, obviously. And I think you would agree. And so we just work with that. This is a report. The only thing that came out of the Permian in the report was Ring Energy to seize an 18-well drilling program. Good idea. That's a good idea.
To seize an 18-well drilling program. Smart. You're doing it right, Ring.
Ring, dude. That's a big platform player.
Yeah. So what I'm interested in is, I know rig counts are dropping, right? But, and I'm assuming DUCs are going to increase exponentially right now. But if there are any teams out there completing, do some wild stuff. Do some stuff where, you put some stages away and, you let them sit and you see what happens. You know what I mean?
Dude, I guess somebody went out recently to Permian Basin section of the SEPM. The lady gave a presentation talking about how they the operator drilled and completed the wells, and then something happened with lease lines or something happened with the land team, and the railroad commission was like, you did something wrong. You need to fix some things before you can produce this well.
Yeah.
So they got whatever that was, right? 30, 40 stages put away in this horizontal, and they couldn't produce it.
Yeah.
So then they're fighting the land battles, and they finally went to producing, and supposedly what happened was amazing. This thing fucking was a badass well.
Are we surprised?
No.
Right?
Not at all.
Not at all.
Not even a little bit.
Not in the slightest
Yep.
am I surprised that well, it probably outproduced the other ones in the area too.
I bet.
I bet it pressured up way higher.
Yep.
And I bet there were some magical things going on.
Yep.
But
decline curve looked a lot different. There was an anomaly in the results.
yeah.
And so I asked a friend of mine, what was their interpretation of what happened? And it was that the reservoir clays soaked up the water from the fracs, and in return pushed a lot more oil and a lot more gas out of the system.
In a smectite reservoir?
I don't know, just the clays.
I was going to say, well, I mean, that's the most important part. What clays? You can't just say clays swell. Like, are we talking like Play-Doh, or are we talking, you know what I mean?
I don't know, man. I said, oh, that's an interesting thing. So
I don't want to say that's a bad interpretation, but that's a bad interpretation.
You have to have some mechanism that says we didn't get a lot of frac fluid back, and in exchange we got a fuck ton of oil and water and gas, like a good performing well. And so what happened? Well, the clays sucked up the irreducible water, fucking curve, like expanded and grew, and the clays did this magical thing.
So much magic. I need some of those magical clays. Please find them for me and show me.
They're everywhere. Yeah. It's the Permian Basin. That's why it exists.
So you're telling me if I had, let's just say a battery, right, filled with produced fluid, so oil, water, whatever, and I threw the magical clays in it, the magical clays would separate the oil and the water out. You don't even need a separator anymore. You just need magic clays.
It would suck up the suck up the water, and you just get a shovel and
you just take that oil out right there. That's all it is.
It was, so you're right. You're right. It's an exciting time for people that actually have the money and the ability to do something different, and the ability to attack what their plans are.
Yeah. Differently.
Slightly differently.
Yeah.
Based on the performance of that well and that anomaly.
Because I know there are contracts out there that people aren't going to be able to get out of, right? So, I mean, worst case scenario, right? You're drilling these wells and you're fracking them.
Yep.
You're just closing the taps, right?
Yep.
You're waiting for oil to not be $22, and then you're going to open that back up.
Give
whatever that break-even point is, based on the reserves you think you're going to get. But I would suggest do some interesting things.
Yeah.
Have some fun. Not slick water, 100 mesh. Let's see how tight we can get this cluster spacing. That is not helping anyone, right? I mean, another thing that I heard, and this was from a friend, I'm not going to say what company. He's a completions engineer, and he said the results they were getting better results as far as not from the amount of proppant pumped into formation, but the amount of water pumped into formation. Interesting stuff, right? Those 100%. Clays working magic, but it's I'm not gonna let that go. I'm sorry. I'm a dick. I'm a terrible person.
That's it. I mean, that's what was said. It was a clay thing. It was an answer, right? It was an answer from somebody's perspective that doesn't know clay chemistry and volatile chemistry with a reservoir that's near boiling temperature with a bunch of fucking oil and kerogen and clays and gas.
I wonder what kind of water they pump down. That'd be an interesting one. If it was produced or if it was fresh.
Produced water's where it's at, man.
Yeah.
Get that shit back into the system.
Multiple reasons, right?
Yep.
You don't want to be freaking dumping that and clean that out. Use it again.
Yeah.
Right? Pass it on.
Yep.
But
make
sure it's the same formation, because that's the last thing you want to do. Is you don't want to introduce two different brines from two different systems into one another, because that's just going to screw things up.
You're going to have other variables.
That's a science. I mean, someone can, and then I want to see those results. That's actually something I'd be super interested in seeing.
Yeah.
Happen.
Yeah. Take some Eagleford brine and pump that thing into the Permian. Yeah. Fuck yeah. And it's a variable. It's opening up tons of variables. So we have this complex equation that we call the oil and gas fucking problem, and you're introducing more variables into something that we already don't have many constants, if any, to work with. So it's a fucking crazy equation, dude.
Yeah.
And we're trying to figure it out. And the best thing we can do is take a step back and, like you said, start messing with everything. Write out that equation. Understand all your variables.
This is the time for innovation, right?
Yeah.
Now's the time again, right? We innovated on the engineering side. How can we step in and innovate on the geologic side, right? There needs to be a geologist in the room with those completions engineers talking about the science, right? Talking about the science of those clays, of the water, in interactions with that formation, right? And I mean, if you have a basic mud log, and I'm pretty sure everyone's running just basic mud logs, right? I mean, you don't even need to get the high-end stuff. You should be able to see what's in that formation, and you should be able to see what's hitting on those stages. All right, so hey, we're moving into a more, dolomitic zone. What's going to be the chemical reaction that'll occur here?
Wow.
Right?
Wow. Fuck, dude, that'd be so sick to just be able to do that. Be a fly on the wall.
Dude, it would be badass.
Wow.
But then I probably would get steamrolled by the other engineers.
While you were talking about that and blew my mind for a second, what the heck was I thinking about? Son of a gun. It was something good. Oh, essentially, a paper that could be at the center of the table with the engineers and the geologists in the room trying to figure out this strange, unique time and how to take advantage of it. The Lujan paper, dude. The USGS Lujan paper needs to be on the table. Out of all papers.
For every unconventional team out there of geoscientists, engineers, go read a paper by Lewin. Done in the 80s. Yeah.
Lewin. I thought it was Lujan, but it's Lewin.
Lewan.
This
33 pages. This is definitely
this is it.
Yeah, this is the chart. So this chart here, just kind of like explaining it, and of course read the paper because he goes in detail about which each each time he does it. But the one thing that I just want to note here is we have just the hydrous paralysis, the H2 pressure pyrolysis, and then we have this salt pyrolysis here. And the one thing that you're going to notice as far as the hydrocarbon chains that are being expelled are vastly greater. Let me see.
Yeah, almost across the board.
Yeah.
This water rock ratio experiment 10. That one has some interesting results with the heavier stuff, the butane and but you get down into the pentane or whatever, there's
like a dramatic kick of like what you're actually expelling as far as the longer chain hydrocarbons are concerned. And it's fascinating. It's the same rock, right? But when you add, depending on what you add to that rock and you put it under temperature, the reactions change, right? So what's going on chemically within that rock, right? Because at the end of the day, right, in theory, you should be able to produce the same amount of hydrocarbon because it's the same source rock, right? It has the same potential, more or less, hydrocarbon potential, right? But when you mix in different things, you get dramatically different results.
What the fuck is that?
Yeah. You get dramatically different results. So what's going on in formation? What is going on chemically in formation?
Whoa. That's it.
Yeah.
So take the produced water, run a chemical analysis on it, see what it is, and everything you could possibly do on a water brine analysis.
And that's cheap. Like for people that are like, we don't have the money to do science.
Right.
It's like,
tell your boss you'll pay it out of pocket.
Hey, don't get kolaches today. Go freaking get brine chemistry done. That's it. I mean,
see what it is, and then put in a water or a brine that's going to manipulate that produced water.
Yeah.
Or the produced brine. The brine that's in the system that's coming out that you know from other wells that are nearby, and start messing with that. So now you have elemental data, you have gas, you have everything, all these variables that are insane.
Yeah.
Put them all on a plot them all. Put machine learning and fucking Python to a real test.
Yeah.
Don't take a bunch of bullshit data and crash it into the system.
But, I mean, I was going to say that's probably going to happen, right? On a first pass. They're probably going to be any machine learning algorithm on a first pass, especially something like that would be. I mean, do you know a programmer that can program that well and effectively? But I agree. If you can get someone to program that, that would be sweet.
Powerful.
Be sweet. You can get brine chemistry today out of all your wells. I'm not saying you should, because the results, I'm assuming, who knows though, should be fairly similar, depending on formation pending. But yeah, this is where he goes into like the chemical breakdown of what he thinks is going on within the formation.
Wow. It's been too long since I read this, man.
Yeah. I should have read it last night.
Dude, both of us.
As a researcher, quote unquote, as a scientist.
Right?
I dropped the ball.
Yeah, we drank whiskey instead, man. It was St. Patty's Day.
St. Patty's Day.
Fuck off.
We were quarantined. There's nothing we could do. We had to just drink whiskey. That was our only solution to the problem.
Bottom line, we're definitely putting this PDF up on the website with this little release of Skippo's traverse from Permian Basin to his mom's basement.
My mom's basement. Story checks out. Story checks out. To the government.
Yeah, that's right. Back to the stomping grounds that eventually got you to the Permian, man.
Yeah, man.
That's a wild story, man. And I really do believe what you accomplished in 3 years of coming out from undergrad and kind of taking a break, not getting into the grad school you wanted to in Montana, and that just what you had as tools as a person coming into that grad program at UTPB, getting a job at in industry, and then specifically getting a job on the more of the land data side, kind of.
Yeah.
More so than geology.
That's where I got kind of pushed into, not push, but it was like, that's where I was needed. Right. But it was freaking awesome.
Dude.
Like getting to work with the people I got to work with and meeting the people I got to meet, actually understanding how the business is run.
Right.
So it's like, whoa. I don't care how good that prospect is. If those leases are fucked, or you're dealing with a landowner that sucks, right? I'm out, right? Even like dealing with the state agencies, right? Whether it's UT Lands or GLO, they each have their little quirks. There's obviously ways to make things economic, but you still have to jump through hoops, and it's just figuring out what hoops you need to jump through and how to prep for that, and just like being constrained. Like, hey, this is the best place to put a wellbore. Like you were talking about, that well that was shut in, right? Why wasn't it produced? A land issue, right?
Yeah.
That's something. I mean, they probably drilled across the lease line, so they probably had to go, lease that land or whatever. Whatever have you, yeah. Or do throw like a plug down there or something and just not produce half the lateral or whatever.
So out of all the things over the last 3 years, when showing up, rolling in the night of the PBLA Rager to landing wells on the Alpine High, to winning the fucking Southwest Section IBA tournament or whatever, and competing in that, writing a fucking thesis that really is arguably one of the best theses to come out of UTPB, or
soon in quotes to be published.
Soon in quotes to be published. What was it, man? 3 years. What was the best thing?
The best thing?
Yeah. What was like your coolest accomplishment, coolest thing that happened?
Dude, that's a great question. I haven't even thought about it.
Oh.
I think for me, like so the coolest thing, okay, I'll start with because it has to be two separate things. Like the coolest accomplishment, without a doubt, was IBA. Working full time and then going to the lab 7 o'clock, staying there until 1 a.m.
Dude.
And then rinse and repeat every day. I actually took PTO in order to be in the lab to work on IBA.
Fuck yeah, dude.
Like
that's why you won.
Weeks. And we poured our heart and soul, like me and the rest of the team. like into that project. And
Definitely.
I think, and the cool thing is everyone fed off one another.
Yeah.
Right? It was like no one really wanted to be the first one to leave. And then it just turned into like, well, there were some nights where we were there till 1,
Wow.
right? And let's be honest, like the last hour or 2 hours of work were useless. Like we didn't accomplish anything. But you know, going into that situation, learning about a brand new basin and just, you know, starting from scratch,
Yeah.
right? It's true exploration. Like,
Yeah.
what do you do? What's that process like? And then going and then hearing our names announced as like the winners of the Southwest section.
Gosh, dude.
Yeah, that was unreal.
I
Dude.
remember the call. I'm going, you fucking
Yeah.
yeah. I knew it was gonna happen.
Yeah.
But then to hear it, and then to hear you guys on the other end just fucking pumped, man.
Yeah.
That was definitely that's one in 5 years. The experience of watching you as a friend, obviously, and knowing that you were going to accomplish, you know, amazing things, and then watching that team come together from the beginning of that process to you guys uniting and now understanding even more that there was like this unspoken chemistry that you guys built
Yeah.
by grinding out until 1 a.m. Like,
And I mean, I still text everyone on that team to this day.
Is that right?
Yeah, man. Like Doug freaking Carton's up in
Clapperton,
man. Doug Carton's like up in freaking. He's just finished up like a master's on like his side of things. Yeah, up in Alberta.
Nice.
Yeah, he's grinding up there. Alec, he got into grad school up in Vancouver.
Is that
he's
right?
Starting, yeah, man. And then Shannon and DJ Drew just going through
Yeah.
the grind. Like Shannon
Yeah.
working on the environmental side. DJ, he's mudlogging now, but I
Fighting,
mean,
dude.
he's
Yeah.
something will come his way. He's too smart.
Oh,
I
man.
mean, someone's got to pick that guy up when things turn around. He's like what he's doing now. I'm more impressed with than anyone else, obviously, right? He's a geophysicist that went into mud logging to stay in industry, to learn more about the rock. And then now it's like, when things turn around, dude, you should be the first geophysicist that's hired because you know more. You've seen more rock than every geophysicist on the planet, probably.
Yeah, I remember Pagel was like, man, I wish I can go do mud logging for a little bit,
Yeah.
right? And just get that experience and touch the rock, feel the rock, see
Well,
it
not
come
only
out
that,
of the
like
ground.
you're looking at the rock, you're seeing it, you're on the rig, you're seeing how the rig operates. You're like, oh shit, like, oh, we drilled through Wolf Camp. That's what drilling through Wolf Camp is like. That little wiggle on seismic, that's what it does. Like seeing those things, I'm sure in the flesh is just insane. But
That's cool, man.
so
That's good. I like that.
Accomplishment, yeah,
Yep.
accomplishment. And then I think my favorite working experience, I don't want to say his name, but Timbo Flex, the VP of land that I was working under at the time, going out to a ranch with a ranch owner that had been, to put it in perspective, we picked up the project as contract operators from another group, right? So we were passed off all the problems that they'd had set in place, specifically on the land side. And going in there from this like hostile environment, like when we first walked in, and watching him talk and it wasn't like he was pandering or anything like that, but just explaining the situation, explaining where we want to go with the project, and seeing that happen in person, that was probably one of the coolest things I've ever seen. Yeah.
Wow.
And just like being able to sit under a guy like that,
Right.
as far as like the land side, who's seen everything, who's done everything, like he was putting things
Dude.
together that, I mean, I've never even heard of an operator do before, right? And like an exploratory drilling program that he wrote up the contract for, that the
Wow.
GLO approved and the landowners approved.
Wow.
Investors not so much.
Wow.
But it was like stuff like that where I'm like, this is wheeling and dealing,
Right?
right?
Boots on the ground.
Boots on the ground and like making the most of what you got.
Wow.
That was cool to see.
That's amazing,
Yeah.
dude. That's amazing.
That was my favorite work experience.
With that experience, it brings up an interesting question because I never got to dive into those things. I remember just reading what you guys were putting together and kind of watching the reports, you know, break out. What is an oil and gas lease essentially?
Okay,
Lease basics.
The easiest one would be go GLO. So kind of what we were talking about and going into is Troy brought up to me when I first started at Trey. I was definitely more a landman than a geologist, right? It turned into both, but when I started, it was, I'd say 90% of my time was allocated to land, 10% into geology. And we were kind of like the general background of land, what I was first tasked with were kind of going through these leases that we were working on one of our prospects.
Yeah.
And just kind of going down and breaking down the different kinds of oil and gas leases, whether if it's UT lands, well, in the state of Texas, because there's no federal land in the state of Texas. Everything's owned by either the state or the people. Oh. So it's either UT lands, GLO, so which stands for the General Land Office, state of Texas, and then
George Strait.
Yeah, fee, or George Strait. Yeah, George Strait.
Explain the basics of land agreements, land leases, oil and gas leases.
Oil and gas leases. Okay. So, I mean, we can dive into each one of them, but for the sake of just pretty generalized in the state of Texas, we're going to use like the GLO lease form, which is the state of Texas, the General Land Office. So, kind of going back into it, the GLO owns 100% of the minerals, but the GLO is their oil and gas leasing department is very, very small, and they own a ton of land. So in order to allocate that work out in a way, as far as like negotiating is concerned, they have the surface owner of that land will act as an agent of the state, right? So you do your negotiations with the surface owner as far as obtaining that lease, right? And just to kind of keep it simple again, let's just say we're dealing with a rancher that owns 640 acres, which is considered a section, right? So you approach that rancher and you say, hello, sir, it looks like, there could be oil here.
There's oil in my land.
Oil in my land? No way. And so then you go into negotiations, and that's where things can kind of get a little sideways, right? Because depending on where you are, right, in the Permian Basin. So like, let's say you're in Lee County or, Reeves County north of the Grisham, right? Those leases are going for $20,000, $30,000 an acre. Insane amounts of money. But, when you're kind of on the fringes, that's when you start to get into the $1,000, $100 range. So understanding the market value of that lease before you go in and having an explanation why is important, right? And it's usually the higher risk, the lower the price, right? If there's no producing oil wells around,
right,
you should be able to say, I'll give you $10 per acre for your land.
Right.
And people do agree to that. Like you see leases in Oklahoma taken super low all the time, right? Because it's those fringe acres. But in the Permian, things were typically way more overinflated than they should have been. But everyone was making money, so not really overinflated, I guess, if you're making money. So anyways, you talk to the person, you figure out who it is that owns that land. That's another thing, right? Because you can be talking to Joe Blow, who's, sitting there, he's nephew or something like that, and you're negotiating with him, and it's like, oh wait, this guy doesn't even own the minerals. So understanding the title before you go in is also extremely important.
Interesting. The title is where at the county office.
The county clerk.
County clerk.
Yeah.
You go, okay, this 640 acres.
County records, yeah. So not county clerk, your county records, yeah.
And
so
you check the records. You're like, all right, this guy owns the 640.
Yeah.
I know who I'm talking to.
Yeah.
What is a lease agreement? Like, what needs to be in it essentially before it can be signed and you can start drilling a well?
So the first thing is understanding the bonus. So understanding how much you're going to pay per acre. And then the other thing is the term of the lease, right?
Okay.
So the terms are typically, and you can negotiate this. So with the GLO now, the way we had it before, or the way it was before, it was be a 3+2. So you'd pay a delayed rental. So essentially you'd take a lease for $100 an acre for 3 years. And in that 3 years, you have the right to drill on that land and abide by, the boundaries within the lease, right?
Which means what?
So essentially like surface damages, or surface damages is kind of on the side, but
your
like
plan,
disposal,
basically?
drilling the well, right? A horizontal, you have to abide by. Let me scroll down.
This is like your design of the battery.
Exactly.
Where you're going to drill first.
Yeah.
You give them kind of a basic outline of what your plans are.
And they just updated this a couple of years ago, because there used to be like a continuous development program and all this other stuff. So here they go into payments, how you're supposed to record it. So retained acreage, this is more along the lines of when you drill a well, whether it's vertical or horizontal, and the lease expires, how much acreage do you actually get to hold? And this has changed quite a bit too.
Wow.
In the time period. So this is what, when I was brought into Trey, I'm not going to edit that one out, but when I was brought in, this is kind of what I was doing at first, was going through each of the leases, because they were all signed and dated different years. and the lease forms were updated on each one. So each one, every clause was similar but different, right? So for example, if we were to drill a horizontal well, you hold 300 feet below that formation to the surface. So let's just say you drill a Wolfcamp B well, right? You can drill that Wolfcamp B well, and if it's producing, you hold Wolfcamp B 300 feet below Wolfcamp B, Wolfcamp A, first and second bone, and so on, right? All the way freaking to like, you know, the Edwards Trinity, right?
Whoa.
So you can explore for oil. You can come back and explore.
Okay,
Now,
so that's the thing. It's specifically to explore for oil and gas.
yeah,
You don't have any rights to pull out fresh water from the aquifer to help with fracking the wells or anything like that, or do you have to negotiate that in?
yeah, you negotiate that with the surface owner. So the surface owner has the right to that water, right? So, and you usually pay, you know, we had some negotiations with this as well, depending on what it is per barrel of water, right?
Whoa.
Yeah, so it'll be like cents
Right.
on the dollar. Sometimes they like try to screw you, and they'll be like $2.
$2 for every barrel.
Yeah,
42 gallons of water.
and things get out of hand, but, right? And that was one lease negotiation that I was on with Timbo Flex, and he's like, "No, that's ridiculous. Like, we can't. You're going to kill the economics of this project.
Right.
Like, you understand that? Like, do you want us to drill a well?
Right.
Like a real well? Then you need to." So that's where like having a good landman that's can talk savvy to like the ranchers, is like worth its weight in gold. And like being under Timbo, and his knowledge, because he was a rancher himself, so he knew exactly how to talk the talk and walk the walk. So like
master at his craft.
At his craft. I was like, you were put on this earth to negotiate oil and gas leases with ranchers. Like, it was awesome.
What an experience, man. Yeah. So you got to learn the basics. First of all, you're learning the basics because you have to, because it's your job. So you're reading these forms and you're really understanding what it is.
Yeah.
But then you're also gaining the experience of watching someone that's so uniquely designed to deal with this
these
situation.
situations. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
What an experience, man. So that was your accomplishment, the IBA, your experience, the
business of oil and
the
gas.
business of oil and gas, man. I mean, what an incredible education you got.
Yeah.
In 3 years, the Permian, you came in as a tadpole and you're hopping out as a bullfrog, man.
I wouldn't say that. I definitely would be like, I definitely feel like I'm getting to that stage though.
Yeah,
Sure.
dude.
I feel like I'm a tadpole with like the arms and the legs, like, they're coming out, like, but I still got the weird tail. Like, it's still there.
Oh man,
I
that's
would have liked
funny.
to. The one thing that I really wish, and I really wish we would have been a part of drilling more wells.
Yeah, dude.
Even though I will say this, the wells that we were a part of, we got to the nitty gritty details of it all. We saw the process from, conception to completion.
That's right, man.
Like the classic saying, right? Like the conception of this well to how we actually completed this well, and having input on what was going on in each step of the way. And me being a fly on the wall listening to that was also freaking awesome.
Dude.
Like listening to the completions meetings, and then
the battle royale,
like just the duck. Like, you're like, oh no.
Wow.
Like,
dude, you're not kidding, man. You're not kidding. And it's setting you up. I mean, what's next, dude? What's next? You're going to go off and fucking PhD?
That's the plan. Well, coronavirus probably pumping the brakes on that. So I'll be around here a little bit longer. But I mean, PhD's the plan, man. I want to keep learning. And I figured if there's a time in my life to do it, it would be now. Right.
Yeah.
I feel like if I get back into the grind, because I love the grind. That's the thing. Like if I'm in it, I'm not going to leave.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of in like this transition period now where it's kind of in my head, I feel like it's now or never.
Sure.
Like I don't foresee myself in 10, 15 years going back and getting a PhD.
No, I talk about it like, when I retire, why not have something to do and I'll go do a PhD.
Yeah.
But that's probably not true.
Yeah. Cause like when you retire, you want to spend time with the family.
Yeah, dude. I don't want to listen to somebody tell me what my deadline is. I don't have
the
deadlines.
grandkids, man, coming around.
That's right.
Dude.
That's right.
That's what you gotta think of.
So the what's interesting when you say a PhD in geology, I think you would be just a natural juggernaut to have MBA next to your name. You know what I mean? You're not thinking business.
I am. Well, that's part of it too. So it's just time and allocation of funds for it all. But I do really want to get my MBA as well. Yeah. I mean, my mom, like, for those people who don't know, my mom works as like an investment banker. Right. And so like I kind of grew up in that.
You definitely got it.
I worked with her like through a lot of stuff, and I do enjoy it. I couldn't do it day to day, but I do enjoy that side of it all. Because I mean, as petroleum geoscientist or just like economic geologist in general, like that's all we are.
That's right.
It's business, right? How can you sell your knowledge to de-risk this play? Right? How can you make this as successful as possible? That's what you're getting paid for.
That's right.
You're not getting paid to sit on your ass and click buttons, right? Even though you think you might be. At the end of the day, it's like your job is to make sure this goes smoothly, right?
That's right.
To avoid failure. And we're going to fail. That's also another part of it. So don't feel like
Yeah, there's the reality of pressure, and making those decisions and having real results to deal with is something that people maybe take for, like, they don't really take seriously until it's too late. And then they're like, fuck, I didn't know like everything was riding on that email that I sent that day. Yeah. You're like, come on, man, you got to understand your professional responsibility. That's why you get educated. That's basically how I see education. A bachelor's degree is a certain limitation to your professional responsibility to whatever you do. A master's degree is opening that up a little bit more. And
obviously there's going to be an anomaly in there, right? There's going to be, the people that are so far past the system, like naturally, that they don't need to go through it.
Sure.
Right? But for the most part, you're right. To the average person, you are constrained by that degree.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, it's designed that way, I think. It's good. You just got a bachelor's degree. You are limited to making certain decisions in the company that are going to have certain impacts. Yeah. If you have a master's, PhD, you're up on that chain. It's how that seems to work. But yeah, you have the people that, I didn't go get school at all. I was raised by the streets. I make good decisions. A natural leader and all that stuff. And that works too. But anyway, cool. So basically you can go to some part of the country, wherever you want, and you have some assumption as an economic geologist that there's something of value in that land. You figure it out, county clerk office.
Or you get the run. Typically you'd get a run sheet. So that's just a super basic breakdown of who owns the land, and you go out and lease.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah. So this is where things also get kind of sideways about the process. And this is another thing also, like working land is that is the constraining factor on development. It is a very long, very slow, very arduous process through from the very beginning to the end. Cause like you get your run sheet, you figure out who owns the land, right? Just like a general idea. You go in, you lease, right? You drill your well. And then before you drill your well, you have to get a drilling title opinion done. So the title opinion is the no shit, like who owns this land from like sovereignty. So when that land was first bought, so you have to go all the way back in the records to like, the great grandpappy who just came out here and stuck a claim in this land and
written on papaya and shit.
Dude, that was cool. So when on the one project that Timbo and I were working on, the actual owner of the ranch had all of those abstracts.
Whoa, the real ones.
The real ones, the OG. So we saw the OG from like 1908. Sovereignty.
Gosh, dang.
And like how it passed through the family lineage, right? So
That's
it's like
amazing,
sold
man.
Here, traded here, blah blah blah.
George
like
Strait bought it here.
Yeah, like this guy had gambling debt, gave it back to his sister. Like it was like hilarious. And then finally getting to the true owners of the land. Yeah, so it all takes forever, dealing with lawyers, dealing with the surface owners, dealing with like the mineral owner if you're depending if it's fee. Right, you're doing 2 different leases. It's just craziness, but but it's fun. It's fun.
Yeah. Oh man, you see the shadow?
I saw the shadow.
He's here, dude. The man, the myth, the legend,
dude.
It's game on.
Game on.
Let's see what he's gonna do. Is he gonna knock or is he just gonna come in?